Hello everyone, and today we are back for another Loomian Legacy Top 5 video, and we're going to be talking about the top 5 ranged tanks in all of Loomian Legacy. I made a top 5 ranged tanks video 18 months ago, but ever since then, they added some new ranged tanks that are even better than the ones that were added 18 months ago. With that out of the way, let's head right onto this list. So, number 5 onto this list is going to be Stratos. Now, Stratos has always been one of the meta Loomians throughout its entire life cycle, but it's even a very good range tank. While the Soulburst Stratos right now is the meta Stratos, the ranged defensive Stratos has always been a very good Stratos. Yes, it is pretty passive, and that's why it is only number 5 on the list, and I will be showing footage from the Soulburst Stratos and not the defensive Stratos, but the defensive Stratos has a lot of good options. You could run Tase, you could Perch, and with the Toxic Filter ability, you're immune to poison-type attacks, which is amazing. The only Loomians that can poison you is Billiforge's secret ability and a devious Venelin, which they're not very common at the moment. And not to mention that Stratos only has 2 weaknesses, being weak to fire and quad weak to electric, which is very easy to play around because, yes, it only has 2 weaknesses, it has an immunity to Earth, and a lot of cool resistances. It's definitely one of the best range tanks in all of Loomian Legacy, but if it had a little bit more offensive potential outside of its Soulburst form, it would definitely be a lot higher on this list. But as it is, it still definitely deserves to be in the top 5 on this list. Number 4 onto this list is going to be Venelin. A lot of people might be shocked that Venelin is in this top 5 and not Pyrolin, but the reason why I put Venelin on this list is the addition of Mudslide, because now, not only is Venelin a toxic type that can get rid of poison barbs, but it also has Mudslide, meaning it can actually get rid of hazards now. Not only is this a Loomian that can poison the opposing Loomians, not only is this a Loomian that also has Rejuvenate, but it can also clear hazards on top of that. And also, Mudslide is just a more powerful move compared to Mud Spatter, which could be very helpful. And the addition of Muck Blast gives Venelin some offensive potential as well. Not as much compared to the other Loomians on the list, but still, with Toxic, it's a very good defensive typing because just as Stratos, you only have 2 weaknesses, that being to Mine and Earth. And just like with Stratos, it's very easy to build a team around Venelin. And since Venelin has Charade, Barter Heavy Shackles, and Poison, there's a lot of utility that you could use with Venelin, either for bulky offense, stall, semi-stall. There's a lot of different ways you can actually use Venelin, and its abilities are really good as well. You have the Devious ability, the Toxic Touch ability, and some other abilities as well. Venelin is awesome, and it definitely deserves to be in the top 5 on this list, but it falls just short because it isn't quite as dynamic compared to the other ranged tanks we're going to talk about in the future. Number 3 onto this list is going to be Cara. Now, this is the most controversial pick on the list because a lot of people might not even consider Cara a top 5 Loomian. But honestly, Cara is awesome. While it is probably the least bulkiest tank on this list, it has so much going for it. The pure water typing is very good, only has 3 weaknesses, has good bulk on both sides, and it has Regift as its ability. And in this metagame, hazards are everywhere. Gargoyle Defense form is a top 3 Loomian in usage, and guess what could stop Gargoyle Defense? Regift. You could put up your Cara, you soak the hits, and then you regift the hazards back to the opposing side. Not to mention that just like Venelin, if the hazards are up, you could mudslide them away. You also have Stratagem, making it so Cara hits very hard. You have Maroon and Soft Water. A lot of good moves that Cara has. And while it doesn't have reliable healing, the fact that it has Regift and Mudslide makes Cara very easy to use. And since it's a pure water type, it's another one of those Loomians which is easy to defensive synergize around for a team. And that's why Cara surprisingly makes the top 3 on this list. Number 2 onto this list is going to be Cleon. Cleon is one of the best ranged tanks in all of Loomian Legacy, hands down. Just like with Fishkarna, you have Stratagem, but you hit even harder because you're even bulkier than Fishkarna. You have Dissipate as well, and Dissipate is awesome because the move always goes last. So what a Cleon can do is soak a hit and then Dissipate out, making you switch into a wall breaker that takes no damage at all. It's very useful. It's like a Luminami clicking Flash and Flay, or a Yursnack clicking Baffle. You also have Tsunami to hit Tyrex, you have Rejuvenate that can heal HP back, and Peace of Mind setup. And your abilities are awesome. The Secret ability can allow screens to be placed for another turn, and the Repugnant ability makes it so you can take less damage from chopping moves, making you a pretty solid melee tank as well. Cleone is just an overall amazing Loomian that can do pretty much everything. It can soak hits. It can have offensive potential. It can have support with Repugnant. It has screens. It has Dissipate. And it has setup with Peace of Mind. Cleone can pretty much do everything. And while it isn't the #1 range tank on this list, it is very dang close. And that's why it deserves #2. Honorable mentions on this list, and honorable mention #1 is Gargolem Defense Form. Now, Gargolem Defense Form was an easy top 3 pick in my opinion. But the reason why I didn't add the Gargolem Defense Form on the list is because a lot of people use Gargolem Defense Form as a melee tank and not as a ranged tank. But it's just as effective as a ranged tank as it is as a melee tank. The reason why it isn't on the list, though, is because I think it's more of a melee tank compared to a ranged tank. So that's why I kept it in the honorable mentions on this list. The second honorable mention is Marafe. And Marafe is one of the most underrated Loomians in all of Loomian Legacy, and it's always the Loomian that tends to get gypped on my top 5 list. So I'm deciding to add Marafe in the honorable mentions. It has Pivot, Shatter that can place hazards, and a pretty good ability in Reflective to make you immune to light type attacks, making Marafe really good. Only reason why it isn't higher is because it doesn't have the best defensive typing. But other than that, Marafe is a great range tank. The best range tank in all of Loomian Legacy is Gasstroke. Now, Gasstroke by itself is a solid range tank. It has Poison, it has Sap Plant, it has Stratagem to hit hard, and it has a healing move in Photosynthesis. That's amazing. And when you combine that with the Tamp as a move, you increase your weak melee defense as well as your range defense. Now, even if it loses Tamp, this is still the #1 range tank in all of Loomian Legacy because of its Soul Burst. Soul Burst Gasstroke is one of the most impressive range tanks in all of Loomian Legacy. It hits hard. It poisons the toxic types that Stratagem hits super effectively. You could actually Sap Plant. You could set up Tamps. You could heal with Photosynthesis. There's a lot of different options you could run with Soul Burst Gasstroke. Not to mention, the Insulated ability makes it so you're only normally weak to ice and not weak to fire, which is amazing for a plant type. Not to mention that even before you Soul Burst, you could have the Ungracious Host ability, so Loomians like Terraclaw and Cephalops take damage from their draining moves, like Parasitize and Soul Drain. There's no contest. Soul Burst Gasstroke is the best range tank in all of Loomian Legacy, and Gasstroke honestly isn't that far behind from it. It definitely deserves the #1 on this list. And here it is, Soul Burst Gasstroke, the best range tank in all of Loomian Legacy. I hope you guys enjoyed this top 5 video. If there are some other bulky range tanks that I missed for the list, please tell me in the comments below because there are honestly a lot of good range tanks in this game. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!